Every single day, we encounter moments where we can take an ordinary opportunity and transform it into an extraordinary experience. But so often I find that people do the bare minimum. We get in the habit of routine that we stop looking for opportunities to make a positive impact, and instead, we just execute on common requests. In fact, I'm seeing a growing complacency where people don't even take the ownership to deliver on simple requests. Let me give you a real-life example, and all the names and specific request details have been changed to protect the individuals involved. Beyond that, this is 100% true, and I was a first-hand witness to the email thread. An email found its way into the inbox of a top leader in a company. We will call this top executive Jan. The email was from a VIP in their industry. We'll call the VIP Holly. Not only was Holly widely known in the industry as an influencer, she was at the center of a big partnership occurring between the two companies. Holly simply sent an email to Jan with a request for a loaf of bread to be delivered to her office sometime in the next few weeks. A pretty simple request. Now go with me. This is a commonplace request in her business. Jan literally had stacks of bread in her office. But instead of getting out of her chair and walking over to her shelf, grabbing bread and taking it down to the mailroom to have it shipped, Jan sent Holly this response. And by the way, this is verbatim what was sent in real life. Of course, the details have been changed. Phyllis handles these matters, but you can have the loaf of bread. Wait a minute. Jan shirks all responsibility and pushes it off to someone else, not even privy to the conversation at hand. Now it gets worse than that. Holly then responds to Jan asking for Phyllis's information so she could process the request for the loaf of bread. Jan responded with Phyllis's email address. Oh, and this is when you know there's a culture problem in this company. Holly, the VIP from the outside company, started a brand new email thread with both Jan and Phyllis on it. Holly, once again, with everyone clued in, requests a loaf of bread. This time, Phyllis responded right away. And again, I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. This actually happened. Phyllis responded to Holly with the recipe on how Holly could make her own bread. My jaw hit the floor when I saw these exchanges. Here is the problem. There is clearly a leadership breakdown within the organization of which Jan and Phyllis are a part. There's a blatant culture failure. Both of these individuals were asked a simple request that is well within their normal job duties, and they shirked their responsibility. Instead of looking for an opportunity to create a positive experience for one of their partners, they created extraordinary confusion. They did not take responsibility, and they did not even do their job. Here are 4 steps to avoid these cultural catastrophes. First and foremost, you must lead by example. Jan was senior to Phyllis and clearly showed that she did not care at all. Arguably, the failure of the leadership started at the very top. This lackadaisical, just barely even check the box to get your job done attitude permeated all levels of this business. Second, you must create an others-first culture. I know this sounds like the preschool playground where the teacher keeps yelling, "Play nice," and "Watch out for Johnny," or "How do you think that made him feel when you hit him?" But it's true, it's the golden rule. But here's where I see the breakdown today. So often we get swept up into the routines of our job that we become robots, just cranking out tasks. It seems that we so easily forget that we are human beings interacting with other human beings. As Ritz-Carlton puts it, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Had Jan simply spent a moment to read Holly's email as an opportunity to make an extraordinarily positive impression, things would have unfolded in a completely different manner. That's where the third element comes in. Leaders must create a culture of ownership. Leaders should encourage every team member, regardless of their position, to take full ownership of every request. This comes through empowering your team members to make real-time decisions to provide extraordinary experiences while simultaneously equipping your team members with the tools needed to execute. Think about how different this would have gone if Jan simply saw Holly's email as not another request being added to an already full to-do list, but instead saw it as an opportunity to put a smile on Holly's face. Jan would have walked over, grabbed a loaf of bread, and walked it to the mailroom. That would have been the bare minimum. She could have added a handwritten note, and she could have even packed it herself and put the bread in the box. Then, to really close the loop, she could have responded to Holly with a tracking number letting her know that the bread is on the way. Now, at first glance, that may seem like a huge time suck, but think about the wasted energy on the back and forth that actually did occur via email. Think about the negative impact and the bad taste left in Holly's mouth by the blatant disregard of her request. Had ownership been a core tenet in this company, Holly would have had the loaf of bread within a day instead of being in a confusing email dialogue for over 3 whole weeks. In addition to a culture of ownership, you need a culture of proactivity. Your team needs to proactively look for opportunities to delight customers. In fact, they need to not only focus on customers, but on every single person they interact with on behalf of your brand every single day. This could be as simple as anticipating someone's needs or offering help before it's even requested. In this scenario, that could have even involved Jan setting up a delivery alert on the tracking number for the bread. As soon as that delivery alert said delivered, Jan could have picked up the phone and called Holly to make sure the bread was what she expected. It's really that simple. I'll share a personal story, not to toot my own horn, but because of the reaction of the individual. Recently in one of my companies, our client was being charged double per month. Honestly, it was very likely that this was due to the customer's fault when using our website. However, that was not the approach we took. My team member immediately jumped into action, apologized, and took the necessary steps to remedy the problem, including putting the credit back on the customer's account. In our weekly one-on-one update, the team member told me what had happened. Then she told me that she took ownership of the breakdown and process, as well as proactively provided a plan to make sure that this never happened again. I was pleased. However, I wanted to personally reach out to the individual we had been double charging for some time. Now here's something important to note about this customer. They were not a high-paying customer at all, nor were they a VIP of any sort. In fact, they had used the most significant discount code we had ever given. So from a monetary standpoint, they were on the lower end of paying customers. However, from a human standpoint, they were as important as every other one of our clients that we have the privilege of serving. Even though the situation was handled perfectly by my team member, I wanted to send a personal apology for the fact that we had been double charging the individual for so long. She was astounded, first of all, that this small and insignificant charge had been relayed all the way up to me at the top of the organization. Second, she was bewildered that I would take the time to personally reach out and apologize. You see, putting others first is crucial in our business, and I need to lead out by example. I put a reminder in my calendar to reach out about a month later on the date that she normally was receiving a double bill to make sure we had cleared everything up. So I sent her an email. She was floored. She could not believe that I took time again to follow up and make sure that we had stayed true to our promise. My time cost me nothing, but a response meant everything to that client. Unfortunately, the example of Jan and Phyllis's response are all too common. When someone asks for bread, they just sent a recipe as if they were bothered and inferred, you can go make it yourself. If you want to create extraordinary experiences for every person that your brand comes into contact with, you must first lead by example. Then you must encourage and promote a mindset where people have an others first mentality and start looking at every task as an opportunity. Then you must create a culture of ownership and proactivity. Remember, every interaction, no matter how big or small, is a chance to rise above the ordinary and create an experience worth sharing.